What's going on, guys? I believe the arms are the #1 body part most people are concerned in either building or defining, and that goes for males and females. And I think for due reason, because it is the most visible body part. Unfortunately, I believe many people just don't train the arms effectively and or just aren't maximizing the right exercises and equipment. And I've said many times, a Total Gym or a Saudi Men's Trainer is the best arm training machine I personally use, just in sheer number of exercise and just effective ways to stress the muscle directly. And even though I've made some other videos talking about training the biceps and triceps specifically, I'll drop those down below if you guys are curious. I still know there's a lot of people out there that are not seeing the results they want utilizing this equipment, or even just some equipment outside in the gym as well. So in this video, I'm gonna give you guys my top 3 reasons on why people are not seeing the growth or definition that they want on a Total Gym, or even outside in the gym as well. So I will put timestamps down below if you guys do wanna jump ahead to a certain section, but as always, if you guys do like this content, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing this content. Everything featured in this video can be found down below in the description box. All right, the very first thing I'll talk about is just making them a priority. And actually, I would say there's kind of 3 subsections to this one as well. All right, so the first part of this is just making a schedule and sticking to it of training your arms at least twice a week and sticking to that schedule. You can't just work in and kind of assume to kind of train arms whenever you kind of feel like it or trying to kind of fit them in. Obviously, the person who's more dedicated and committed, doing a set schedule, training them at least twice a week is gonna see more results than those people that don't do that. The second aspect of training priority is putting them a little more higher up in the exercise order. Traditionally with resistance training, we kind of save these single joint exercises like arms and like single joint shoulder exercises towards the end of a workout. And you certainly can still do that, but with these machines, given their lower intensity nature, I find you get a lot more bang for your buck and adding a lot more total volume, which I'll talk about later, which is really important in building arms, by putting them further up in the exercise order, even like second exercise. A lot of times, and I've recommended before, doing things like in a circuit fashion, and I honestly find that even doing things like biceps and triceps don't really impair with other kind of pushing and pulling exercises when you do put them higher up in the order. And so doing this will increase your overall stress and work on the muscle without sacrificing too much on those other multi-joint exercises, again, due to that lower natural intensity in resistance from a Total Gym. The third aspect of training priority is to not train them indirectly. What I mean by that is a lot of people approach even these Total Gyms in the same way they kind of go to the gym, thinking that, well, I'm kind of doing a lot of pushing and pulling related exercises, and even with this equipment, that kind of save time by kind of going through a lot of different exercises all at once, which I recommended people do. But if you really want to focus and build and define your arms, you should give them direct focus. So don't just kind of think and rely on these multi-joint, pressing and pulling type exercises for your chest and back and shoulders to then secondarily work your arms. I often find the best gains I've ever got in my arms is direct, isolated exercises. Even things that are relatively kind of in the mix of those two worlds, we're doing like close grip presses that definitely work, your chest, even your shoulders, and definitely your triceps. I find, for me personally, even for my biceps and triceps, the direct elbow flexion extension exercises are gonna be your go-to movement patterns you wanna stick to. Now, the second reason your arms might not be growing is that you're just kind of overcomplicating the process in general. And I find this to be the case with people that have these predetermined exercises or reps and set schemes, so much so that they even try to isolate certain heads of, say, the biceps and triceps. And if you guys aren't aware of this, biceps are 2, triceps are 3, and there's kind of 2 parts to a bicep, 3 parts to a tricep. And people like to kind of find and select certain exercises and range of motions that target these specific heads, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think people can lose the forest for the trees on what ultimately signals muscle growth, and that is overall stress to the musculature. And this gets into the problem of overcomplication of exercise selection and building muscle. I've met many people, some with awesome arms, some with somewhat average arms, and in both camps I've heard people who really obsess about choosing these exercises to hit all these heads, to cover all their bases, so to speak. And granted, I was kind of one of them very early on in my training. I made sure I selected the variety of exercises intentionally so I could build my arms, quote unquote, the right way, only to find out that I was ironically limiting myself through all these preset exercises and their respected sets, reps, instead of focusing, again, what is most important with signaling growth, and that's stress. And certainly there's nothing wrong with choosing a variety of exercises to work your arms in a given session, but there's so many variables that go into play as far as why you're not feeling that muscle work a particular way, or why it's not responding into the training that you're placing upon it. For many years, I found myself doing specific isolated exercises that I really didn't feel, but I did them anyways because they're written down in some muscle building magazine, and they were supposedly gonna hit this certain area, and by working this certain area, my muscles would grow a certain way. So never just choose exercises that you feel like you have to or should do because you read it or saw it somewhere. Instead, default to those exercises that might be unique to you that you feel the most amount of stress from, and then just repeat that process. And that repetition leads us into the third and final reason why you're probably not seeing that definition that you want and growth in your arms, and that's progressively working on volume. There's all sorts of ways to define and calculate volume, but simply just think of it as a sum of your work. So the sum of your reps, sets, and weight lifted. And at the end of the day, if you're positively adapting to that repeated stress of resistance training, your body will compensate by growing to accommodate that stress and therefore allow you to train with more volume than the previous session. At the end of the day, if your body's adapting to that repeated stress of resistance training, your body will compensate by growing to accommodate that stress and therefore allow you to lift with more volume. We've all experienced what that was like the very first time we worked and trained our arms, that feeling of intense soreness, you could barely lift your arms, and then very quickly, over a period, maybe weeks, maybe possibly months of trying different things and mixing it up, your body gets accustomed to that and you no longer feel that intense soreness. The big and most common problem people face, and I certainly faced it, is that people kind of get used to this type of routine that they were doing. Sure, they might vary the type of exercises, but the rep and set scheme might seem somewhat the same, and they never just push beyond that point in increasing total volume and stress to the muscles that they were already capable of handling. And I learned this lesson myself early on with my training, specifically with my arms, but then I applied it to everything else, where I had about 2 years of consistent training under my belt. Then I was training with other people and different people that were doing a lot more progressive volume, much more instinctual, not so much of a variety of exercises, but just really hammering in overall stress and volume. And I realized not even a whole lot of exercise variety, just the same kind of staples, barbell curls, easy bar curls, that my arms could have handled a lot more. I just was not pushing them as hard as I was. And it's not because I couldn't work harder, but it was because I thought I was doing it, quote unquote, the right way with these predetermined exercises, sets, and reps. Don't forget, when we're talking about volume, it's a sum of your work. So it's not just the total reps and sets, but definitely it is the total intensity or just weight and resistance. So to adapt to handle and do more volume, we need those strategic ways to stress these relatively small muscles that don't respond to growth simply by increasing raw weight. And this is where you can kind of implement resistance bands, mixing up range of motion, external weight plates, supersets, drop sets, compound sets, rest pause sets, basically anything and everything to get your arms to work a little bit harder than they're accustomed to. So that might have seemed a little bit too general for some of you guys. And again, I didn't focus in on specific exercises, specific range of motions and stuff like that, although that stuff is important. And I have videos like that. I'll link them down below if you guys are curious. But especially with this type of equipment, these machines, you can really add up the volume, you can add it to a higher priority, and you can do so without overcomplicating things. And I think all three of those factors, when you apply it to this equipment, you will notice exceptional growth in your arms. So even though you might be one of those people that are kind of struggling to see results, I've talked to tons of people who email me and commented on this channel that they've never seen better arm growth since they were consistently training with a slotting bench trainer. But that is it, guys. Any questions, comments, feedback, let me know. If you're interested in one-on-one coaching or one-on-one consultations with me, definitely go to slottingbenchtrainer.com or shoot me an email at slottingbenchtrainer@gmail.com. I will see you guys. Thank you.